time once again for the latest episode of Mystery Unsolved. I'm, of course, your host, Justin Bienvenu. And tonight we have a similar episode to last Friday. Last Friday, you may remember I did an episode on the Somerton Man. This one is definitely similar in the sense of like, WTF? What's going on? Why don't we know who this person is? And all that. So, tonight's episode is on the Isdal woman. This is another episode that was inspired by the guys over at BuzzFeed Unsolved, so thank you to that. So, without further ado, the Isdal woman. And what I'm going to do, you pretty much already know the deal. I'm going to explain, well, I can't explain who the woman is because we don't know. That's the mystery here. But what I'm going to do is give you a little brief rundown, get into the investigation, get into the description, and then at the end, we will have theories on what happened to her and possibly who she is. So without further ado, Mystery Unsolved, the Isdal woman. The Isdal woman was Norwegian, was born perhaps between the years of 1930 and 1945. She died in November of 1970. The name is a placeholder given to her as an unidentified woman who was found dead at the Isladen, the ice valley, in Bergen, Norway on November 29, 1970. So her body was found in Norway, and they have no idea who she is. And we're going to find out exactly why it is that they don't know who she is. Do I look crooked? I know I look crooked. Who cares? You don't care. All right. Although police at the time ruled a verdict of likely suicide, the nature of the case encouraged speculation and ongoing investigation in the years since. Half a century later, it remains one of the most profound Cold War mysteries in Norwegian history. Also, world history, because this is quite baffling for any country, not just Norway. All right. On the afternoon of November 29th, 1970, a man and his two young daughters were hiking in the foothills of the north face of Ulriken in an area known as Isladen, the Ice Valley. It was also nicknamed Dødsladen, the Death Valley, due to the area's history of suicides in the Middle Ages and a more recent string of hiking accidents. Okay, so it's got like three different names. Noting an unusual burning smell, one of the daughters noting an unusual burning smell, one of the daughters located a charred body of a woman located among some scree. Surprised and fearful, the group returned to town to notify the police. So that's one of the things I thought I remembered. The body it's charred. It's a charred body. Why is it there? Why is it charred? Who is she? Bergen police responded quickly and launched a full-scale investigation. Examining the site, police noted the woman's supine position, her clenched hands up by her torso, and the absence of a nearby campfire. The front of her body and her clothes had been severely burned, and she was unrecognizable. Also located or placed near the body and affected by the fire were an empty bottle of St. Halvardker, two plastic water bottles, a plastic passport container, rubber boots, a woolen jumper, a scarf, nylon stockings, an umbrella, a purse, a matchbox, a watch, two earrings, and a ring around the body, which, oh, and a ring, sorry, and a ring. So, in similar notion to the Somerton man, he had a lot of weird possessions on him, items that just didn't quite make sense. This one, no different. In fact, she's got a lot of weird miscellaneous stuff on her. So, again, very, very baffling, very bizarre. And again, I apologize if I look crooked. I'm trying to do my best. All right, there we go. Yikes. Around the body were traces of burned paper, and beneath it was a fur hat, which was later found to have traces of petrol. All identifying marks and labels on these items had been removed or rubbed off. So you remember in the Somerton man, he had clothing, and all the tags were taken off? Same thing. Same thing. 3 days later, investigators found two suitcases belonging to the woman at Bergen Railway Station, just like the Somerton man. Supposedly, the police had found suitcases that were said to be from him. In the lining of one, police discovered five 100 Dutch 5 100 Dutch mark notes. Among other items, they found clothing, shoes, wigs, makeup, eczema cream, 135 Norwegian kroner, Belgian, British, and Swiss coins, maps, timetables, a pair of glasses with non-prescription lenses, sunglasses with partial prints that matched the body, cosmetics, and a notepad. Wait a minute, if there was partial fingerprints, oh, but they don't have full fingerprints. Okay. As with the body, any identifying information had been removed. So they're finding a lot of like items that perhaps belong to this woman, but there's no pictures, there's only half fingerprints, and there's nothing substantial enough for them to be like, hey, maybe it was this woman. Still don't know. An autopsy at Gates Institute concluded the woman had died from a combination of incapacitation by, you know, barbiturate and poisoning by carbon monoxide. I'm sorry, what? Let's read that one again, shall we? An autopsy at Institute concluded that the woman had died from a combination of incapacitation by phenobarbital and poisoning by carbon monoxide. Soot was found in her lungs, indicating she was alive as she burned, and her neck was bruised, possibly from a fall by a blow. Analysis of her blood and stomach showed that she had consumed between 50 and 70 Phenomol brand sleeping pills, and found next to her body were a further 12 sleeping pills. Jesus. So you may remember in the beginning, let's just scroll up to the beginning when it said, although police at the time ruled the verdict of a likely suicide, I want to know when they ruled it a suicide. Did they take one look at the body and say, oh man, this is a really bad suicide? Because if they rule it a suicide after the autopsy, like, oh, she took sleeping pills and she had soot in her system and carbon monoxide poisoning, like, okay, but no one's going to go through that extreme to kill themselves. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to kill yourself by taking a bunch of sleeping pills, then take a bunch of sleeping pills. Like, what are you going to take? How are you going to ingest carbon dioxide? Like, oh, that didn't work. Let me try sleeping pills. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try phenobarbital. Like, similar to the Somerton man, it seems we have very incompetent and dumb police. But perhaps I'm jumping on here. At autopsy, her teeth and jaw were removed due to her unique gold filling dental work. Tissue samples of her organs were taken. Police then launched an appeal for the information in Norwegian media regarding the case. The last time she was seen alive was on November 23rd, when she checked out of room 407 of the Hotel Ordeheimen. Okay. Hotel staff told police that she was a good-looking and roughly and tall, with dark brown hair and small brown eyes. Staff noted that the woman kept mainly to her room and seemed to be on guard. When she checked out, she paid her bill in cash and requested a taxi. Her movements between then and the discovery of her body remain unknown. So I'm assuming she used an alias because otherwise, they could just be like, hey, that's her, that's the woman. She probably used like Jane Smith or Jane Doe or something. Ow. Got a random itch up my arm and my hand. Ah. Mm. Police were able to decode the notepad entries and determined that they indicated dates and places the woman had visited. As a result, based on handwritten checks and forms, police determined that the Isdal woman had traveled around Norway, Oslo, Trondheim, Stavanger, and Europe with at least 8 fake passports and aliases. See what I mean? While details such as birthdates and occupations changed from one form to another, she consistently gave her nationality as Belgian. The forms were filled out in either German or French. It was also learned that the woman had previously stayed at several hotels in Bergen and was known to change rooms after checking in. She often told hotel staff that she was a traveling saleswoman and antiquities dealer. One witness said that she overheard the woman talking to a man in German in a Bergen hotel. Others who met her mentioned that she had also spoke Flemish and broken English and smelled of garlic. Was she a freaking vampire? Like, people who saw or met her also commented that she wore wigs. So, are you getting the same feeling that I am? She travels a lot. She wears wigs. She speaks fluent languages. Sounds like a spy to me. Composite sketches based on witness descriptions and analysis of her body were then circulated in many countries via Interpol. Despite the significant police resources deployed, the unknown woman was never identified, and the case was quickly closed. Quickly closed. And there's a little number there. Yeah, so you know what that means. They're like, we don't want any part of this. While authorities concluded that she had committed suicide by ingestion of sleeping pills, others believed that there was evidence that she was murdered. So the police like didn't want to even bother. Isn't that what it sounds like? They're just like, she had sleeping pills in her system. There were 12 additional sleeping pills next to her charred body. Yeah, I think this is just a suicide gone wrong. Let's just let's just close it. And people are like, no, you need to look into this. There's enough evidence, and this woman had enough evidence on her randomly to sink a battleship. None of this makes any sense. It sounds sketchy as hell. Please look into this. And they're like, you don't know who it is, so let's just wrap it up. On February 5th, 1971, the woman was given a Catholic burial based on her use of the saints' names in check-in forms in an unmarked grave within the Mollendal graveyard located in Bergen. Attended by 6 members of the Bergen police force, she was buried in a zinc coffin to both preserve her remains and for ease of dis- disinterment. Her ceremony was also photographed in case relatives came forward at a later date. I've never heard that before. Like photographing it, so it's like, hey, in case somebody thinks they might know her. All right, so I did give you a lot of information, but what do you think so far? It's similar to the Somerton Man, right? Like that's what I think. There's this person, their body's found, they have no identification. Although I will say that unlike the Somerton Man, people actually like, I guess, well, the Somerton Man, they said, like, oh, I think maybe I saw that guy. Maybe that was a guy who I saw slumped over, but he couldn't be certain. With this one, they had like several eyewitness accounts at the hotel she stayed in saying, yeah, that was the woman. I'm kind of curious as to what aliases she used. So maybe they could actually pinpoint like what was her real name. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe was there a name that she used frequently? That's not listed here. But to me, that'd be something I'd look into. to see like if she used like certain names more than once, like maybe she's hinting that that's her name. Because some people do that, they want to try to use an alias, but they can't help it, and they use like a similar name to theirs. All right, theories. Before I read this, I guess the big mystery here is who is she? Why was she charred? Why was she found where she was found? And why was she killed? There's just so many mysteries here. Many questions remain unanswered about the case, especially the reason for the woman's many identities and unexplained travel plans. That would have been my fourth. That's fourth to me. How about who is she? Why was her body like charred? And why was she found in the park? Also, police. Why? Let's not overlook this now. Police. Oh, she took sleeping pills. That must have been a suicide. Her body was charred. It was burned. So did she light herself on fire and then take sleeping pills? Why would you do that? I don't know. I feel like either the articles that I read either intentionally make the police sound ridiculously stupid or they were actually ridiculously stupid. Multiple investigations point to the possibility that she was a spy. Didn't I not just say that like less than 10 minutes ago? Given the Cold War context of the time, Norway had also experienced other strange disappearances in the 1960s, close to military installations, which also trace back to international espionage. The declassified records of the Norwegian Armed Forces also reveal that many of the women's movements seem to correspond to top secret trials of the Penguin missile. Hmm. So they sort of looked into her travel plan and they connected it to this mission during the Cold War, Norwegian Armed Forces. And they're like, you know what? Her pattern of travel is very similar to this. A fisherman is also reported to have recognized the unknown woman while observing military movements in Stavanger. The 9 identities used in hotels no passports were found could imply the involvement of a very professional organization or, alternatively, involvement in a crime gang. Okay, so I don't want to repeat myself like a broken record like I always do. So let's just skip the fact that we don't know shit. Let's go back up to the one part that I noticed here, right? A fisherman is also reported to have recognized the unknown woman while observing military movements in Stavanger. The dead woman or the woman that she might supposedly be? Need a little more here. Okay, I don't know. The taxi driver who took the woman from the hotel into Bergen railway station was never found. Wait, what? The taxi driver who took the woman from the hotel to Bergen railway station was never found. So the taxi driver went missing too? Oh, that's interesting. In 1991, however, a taxi driver wishing to remain anonymous said that after picking up the unknown woman at the hotel, they were joined by another man for the ride to the train station. Huh. Just add another crazy twist to the plot. In 2005, a Bergen resident who was 26 in 1970 told a local newspaper that after seeing the sketch circulated, he had suspected that the dead woman was a woman he had seen 5 days before the body was found, when he was hiking on the hillside of Fløyen. Surprisingly, she was dressed lightly for the city rather than a hike, and was walking ahead of 2 men wearing coats who looked southern in quotation marks. She appeared resigned and seemed about to say something to him, but did not. He went to he went to someone he knew at the police to report, but was told to forget about it. Therefore, neither his name nor his alleged sighting was recorded at the time. Then how do we know about it? In 2006, the case was reopened, and NRK commissioned the American artist Stephen Mossel to create 6 alternative sketches of the Isdal woman, which was shown to people who had seen her. I just got a chill in the back of my neck as I was reading that. I don't know why. In 2017, stable isotope analysis of the woman's teeth taken from her unburied jawbone indicated that the woman had been born in about 1930, plus minus 4 years, in or near Nuremberg, Germany, but had moved to France or then France-Germany border as a child. I love that fact that I love technology now. Like back in the 70s, back in the 30s and 40s, they're like, we don't know. Like she killed herself. He killed himself. There was a charred body. He killed himself. She killed herself. There was a charred body. Why would somebody take off the labels on their clothes, have a campfire, light themselves on fire in a park, and then take sleeping pills? If they lit themselves on fire, the fire is going to kill them, not the sleeping pills. 1970s police? She killed herself. Yeah, all right, whatever. This reinforced earlier analysis of her handwriting, which suggested that she had been educated in France or a neighboring country. I love the fact that we can figure all this shit out based off of analysis from her teeth. Analysis also indicated she had been to a dentist in either East Asia, Central Europe, Southern Europe, or South America. Okay. In 2018, NRK and the BBC World Service published a podcast series titled Death in Ice Valley, which included interviews with eyewitnesses and forensic scientists, also suggesting that the Isdal woman's birthplace may have been southern Germany or the French-German border region, and that she was likely born 1930 plus 4 years. She was also likely. How about who the hell was she? Drop a name or two, or three, or four, or five. My God. How about why was she in the park? Why was she burned? Could she have possibly been murdered? If she was a spy, was she murdered because she was a spy? If so, why? I have so many damn questions, and this answers none of them. But Justin, it's unsolved for a reason. That's why you're doing it. I know, but give me something. Oh, here we go. Here's an interesting one. The author Dennis Zacher asks, in a book about the case, proposed the woman to have been a sex worker. This is based on the way that her route was planned, goal-oriented and always returning to the same point, likely her home. Her wish to remain anonymous, her behavior at hotels, including the marking the doors in different ways, and the fact that different men she witnessed meeting never came forward. He argued that another person was likely at the crime scene when she died, based on the evidence from the scene and her medical intoxication condition in the hours before her death. He said there were arguments that supported the death being either murder or assisted suicide, and believed murder to be the most likely. All right, so Dennis Zacher asked, first of all, you can take your sex worker theory and go somewhere else with that, because I'm sorry, but that just doesn't fly here. Spy beats that by a mile, in my opinion. However, the fact that he thinks it's murder, thank you. Tell that to the Norwegian police, who think she killed herself by swallowing pills, despite them finding a charred body. All right, last bit of information, and then I guess I'll give theories, maybe. In 2019, after a publication on the case in La Republicaine Lorraine, in an inhabitant of Forbach, France, claims to have had a relationship with the woman in the summer of 1970. But they don't know who the woman is. How is it that we have all this information of where she grew up, when she was born, what she did, and now this guy claims to have a relationship with her? We don't know who she is, though. Oh my God. Okay. The woman, a polyglot, supposedly had a Balkan accent. She had many things, apparently. She pretended to be about 26 years old, but often dressed herself to look younger and refused to share any personal details. She is said to have often received scheduled phone calls from abroad. How do we know all this information, but we have no clue who she is, how she died, when we know how she died, why she died, where she died? We don't know the who, we don't know the why, and we don't know the where. Well, we do know the where, but we don't know why she died, where her body was found. The resident managed to rifle through her belongings and found various wigs and colorful clothes. He had also pilfered a photograph of the woman riding a horse. Suspecting she was a spy. Wait a minute, a photograph? How good's this photograph? Can we use analysis to pinpoint? That's kind of important here. Suspecting she was a spy, he considered contacting the authorities, but was afraid to do so. His story and the photograph were published in a subsequent issue of the newspaper. Okay? Oh man, let's go to another article here. Go to A&E, shall we? A&E.com, just like the TV show. I mean the TV channel. Because it was a cold case file. Sorry, I'm just reading to make sure that there's something I didn't catch from the other article. Some speculated the case may have been closed because it had larger implications. If in fact the woman was a spy or somehow connected to intelligence work, which would make sense, it would explain why the police are actually ridiculously stupid, but they're just kind of like playing stupid. In other words, like, this is way bigger than you, and it's way bigger than me. We don't need to know who this woman was. No, but I kind of want to know who this woman was. My father could never put this case away. Tor Osland, the son of Bergen investigator Harold Osland, told the BBC. He never could accept that they had to close down the case. The granddaughter of a Bergen police officer, Cecile Thorsted Flo, wow, say that 5 times fast, said the case broke her grandfather's trust in his profession. My grandfather had his feelings that barrier were being put that my grandfather had this feeling that barriers were being put on their work. So basically, it could in fact be a police cover-up, which would make sense if she was a spy. All right, a lot of information. Now let's get down to before we get to the theories, let's break down each of the unknowns here. Who was she? Unfortunately, that we don't know. There was a ton of information, a ton of evidence. There was even a photograph, but that apparently doesn't amount to anything in helping any of us, even 50 years ago, to determine an identity, a name as to who this woman was. The only thing we know is that she could have been a spy, she could have been a sex worker, she could have worked for the government. Which do you think? I'm going to go with spy. So that's the only who that we have. Who was she? She was a spy, apparently. Do you think she committed suicide, assisted suicide, or was she murdered? I'm going to go with that Dennis Askey guy. I think she was murdered. You don't just you don't light yourself on fire in the middle of a park. You just that's not normal. That's not normal. Even if you live the life of a spy, you don't light yourself on fire. I'm sorry, but that's just not. You just don't do that. So I think that she was a spy, and I think that perhaps somebody tried to kill her by having her ingest a large amount of sleeping pills, and realizing that maybe it could be traced back, and maybe they discovered the identity of this woman. They took all the tags off of her stuff, then proceeded to burn her body beyond recognition. So I think she was murdered. Why the park? Or the place, was it a park? I know the family said they found her. Maybe she was running from this person, and this is where she ended up, and she was at the campsite. So maybe she was camping out here, and she was like, all right, I'm going to camp out here. I'm going to be safe. And the person, man or woman, caught up with her and said, okay, you got a nice campfire set up? Boom, throws the fire on her, burns her, then has her take sleeping pills for whatever reason. Or maybe she herself tried to take sleeping pills. And then she woke up the next day like half groggy, like, oh crap, how am I still alive? And then by the time she realized she was still alive, the person had showed up and it's like, all right, well, you're still not dead, and I'm gonna finish you off myself. Doesn't it all sound plausible and make sense? All right. Who do you think? First of all, what do you think of this case? Who do you think the Isdal woman was? What did she do for a living? What was her profession? Why was she killed the way she was killed? You know the deal. If you want to give me your thoughts, please feel free to comment on the YouTube channel. Feel free to reach out to me, whichever you want to do. And yeah, did you hear that? That was my chair. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of The Isdal Woman for Mystery Unsolved. And do stay tuned next Friday as the next topic will be on the Umbrella Man. So we're going from the Somerton Man to the Isdal Woman to the Umbrella Man. A lot of probably similar things. But yeah, this has been Mystery Unsolved. I am, of course, your host, Justin Bienvenu. Have a good night.